Or should I say, underneath Route 66.
Last time we left off, we were leaving downtown Los Angeles and headed towards Pasadena on the Arroyo Seco Parkway, which is now right above our heads.
This small freeway here was once part of old Route 66, and I gotta say, it's pretty cool to be down here.
I've spent a lot of time on Route 66, but I gotta admit, I haven't spent that much time underneath Route 66.
Look at this, we appear to have a bunch of Girl Scouts living under this bridge.
Most of them are very friendly.
Except this one. She is not happy about us being down here.
It's actually pretty cool. It looks like the South Pasadena Girl Scouts have gotten to paint some murals down here. Look at this, Troop 721 thinks camping is fun. Hey, that rhymes.
I love murals like this. I love kids' murals. Look at, there was a bear, a great big bear. There was a bear way out there.
Anyway, between my house this morning and getting up here, I had to spend 3 hours in traffic on the freeway.
That was a little longer than normal, but generally, if you live in Southern California, you spend a lot of time stuck in traffic everywhere, so
it is very, very rare that someone from around here would come and drive on a freeway just for the fun of driving on it.
But in 1940, that's exactly what happened. People from all over Southern California came here to drive on the Arroyo Seco Parkway.
It was a brand new wonder, the first real freeway west of the Mississippi River.
The Parkway was a modern marvel.
Multiple lanes on each side, no stoplights, no traffic lights.
It was a pretty phenomenal thing, and it was incorporated into Route 66.
Now, nowadays, the Arroyo Seco Parkway there feels woefully outdated and terribly narrow. You can see down below me here is the Arroyo Seco.
This is a mostly seasonal river here, and as you can see, the riverbed, much like all the other riverbeds in Southern California, is controlled with concrete. The Arroyo Seco Parkway runs right alongside from Pasadena down into Los Angeles.
And although it once was a modern marvel,
like I said, today with modern traffic, it feels narrow and twisty and kinda scary.
Allow me to illustrate here at one of the on-ramps. Here is a stop sign we're pulling up to. And that,
right there where those cars are,
that's the freeway. Not really any sort of ramp there.
Just a stop sign and a terrifying
merging situation.
And just like that, we're on the freeway.
Now, normally the point of going on Route 66 is to get away from the interstate and from the freeway.
And even though this is a particularly historic freeway, I can understand why you're like, why are you showing us this?
Well, I just think it's interesting, not only because it is, in fact, part of old Route 66 after 1940,
but also because this first modern freeway west of the Mississippi really spelled the beginning of the end for the Mother Road. Okay, here's the exit.
Look at that. We just exited the freeway there onto a street. There's no buffer zone, there's no nothing.
Oh, scary.
Anyway, we just passed by it quickly the other day, and I didn't really get to talk any about its history.
So I thought it'd be worthwhile to come take at least one more peek at the old Arroyo Seco.
Because although it may be flawed by modern interstate standards,
it was one of the earliest freeways, and like I said, was the beginning of the end for the old highway.
Before the Arroyo Seco, before the interstate,
there were actually multiple Route 66 paths from Los Angeles up towards Pasadena.
And if you're following them, then you're almost guaranteed to end up in Highland Park.
Check this neighborhood out. It looks like something out of Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Does not look like a shocking place for 1920s and 30s Route 66 to come through, huh?
Well, I'm not pulling over just because it's a historic old part of Los Angeles. There's lots of those.
No. I pulled over because of this.
Many of you are no doubt familiar with the giant muffler men statues.
You know, those old fiberglass roadside giants, but I doubt that many of you have ever seen a muffler man like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce you
to the world famous Chicken Boy.
I know it's up on top of a roof, so it's hard to get a sense of scale from this angle.
But ladies and gentlemen, that is a 20-foot man with a chicken head.
A giant chicken boy, and he's holding a bucket of what else?
Chicken?
Folks, that's an 18-foot man eating chicken.
No, wait a minute, that's not a man eating chicken, that's a chicken boy eating chicken.
Oh my gosh. He's a cannibal!
Man, you've heard that LA has some rough neighborhoods, but you never expect 20-foot cannibal chicken boys.
Now, the interesting thing here is that the Chicken Boy is a world-famous Route 66 attraction.
But he's only been sitting here along Route 66 since 2007.
Before that, he was in storage, but originally he came from downtown LA.
From the roof of a restaurant called, what else? Chicken Boy.
Apparently they were trying to find a way to save the Chicken Boy for years and years.
Until finally this place, Future Studio, donated their roof.
Oh, excuse me, he's actually 22 feet tall.
You can see that Future Studio here has added a Chicken Boy shop, a little historical information about the Chicken Boy there. Look at that, look at that.
The Chicken Boy gift shop is only open by appointment, but luckily someone came out and gave me this brochure all about the Chicken Boy, and you can buy stuff online from the Chicken Boy anytime at chickenboy.com.
I love this here because this bottom paragraph refers to the Chicken Boy as the Statue of Liberty of Los Angeles.
If I didn't already love the whole idea of the Chicken Boy,
That paragraph alone would have sealed the deal for me. Look at the size of that Chicken Boy.
I've seen a giant chicken or two in my day.
But nothing like the Chicken Boy. How about that?
All right, old Route 66 and old Chicken Boy, we gotta be moving along.
Not only is the old open road calling my name,
But I forgot to put money in the parking meter.
oh, whew, luckily, no ticket.
Oops.
All right, just making one of our 50-point LA back up, turn around, make a U-turn turns here.
And what the heck is this?
What in the world is that? Look at that.
This is what I love about traveling Route 66, even in LA. Look at that.
First a Chicken Boy and then weird offspring son of Chicken Boy and Mosquito Girl. Look.
Okay, that's enough for me. Time to flip around and head from Highland Park up to Pasadena.
It's actually a very interesting road all through Highland Park and Eagle Rock and all that stuff.
It's infested with history and hipsters.
Now, I don't want to stop too much or get too hung up on things that are basically in my backyard that I can get to anytime.
But as Route 66 crosses into Pasadena, there is something we have got to see.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Colorado Street Bridge.
A truly terrifying crossing over the old Arroyo Seco.
Look at this bridge here. Does this look familiar to you? It should. It's been used in countless TV shows and movies.
And oh boy, does it make me nervous. Okay, we're gonna try and find a way to see if we can get out of the car here.
Okay.
I am not historically the biggest fan of bridges, but in this historic bridge's case, I'll make an exception.
Ladies and gentlemen, high above the Arroyo Seco down there, the Colorado Street Bridge.
It's got some very cool old school street lighting. Look at all this old school design here.
Beautiful curved architecture, and look at all those archways down there. What a work of art.
This, my friends, was the original path that Route 66 took from Chicago into Los Angeles. This was the LA entry point.
And actually, this bridge here predates Route 66 by quite a bit.
Look at this here. It says it was designed in 1912 by Waddell and Harrington of Kansas City, Missouri.
They completed this bridge in 1913, and Route 66 wasn't even a thing until 1926. That's 13 years.
This bridge was around without Route 66.
It was a teenager by the time Route 66 traffic came along.
Look at the way this bridge curves. Isn't that crazy?
In 1913, this must have been one heck of a sight.
This bridge is 1,400 feet long, and I have no idea how tall, but tall.
Now, the reason the bridge is important is if you take a look out that way and see the hills over here on the LA side and the hills over here on the Pasadena side. Before 1913, the only way across to get between Pasadena and LA was to go all the way down here, down into the Arroyo Seco, and then back up the hills on the other side.
Now, we're talking about a time before the automobile was even commonplace. How'd you like to get your mule or your wagon up that hill over there, huh? I wouldn't.
So this bridge here, the Colorado Street Bridge, its official name, was the first level crossing from Pasadena, or parts eastward, and Los Angeles. And she's 114 years young. 114 years, that's pretty good for a concrete bridge. Whoa, would you look at that? Look at the size of that teeny tiny trash can down there, center screen. That's a big drop. Now, normally I would get vertigo in a situation like this, but you'll notice these giant bars here. Hey, I don't remember bars being on these windows. For some reason, these bars are helping me with my fear of heights, and they're helping quite a lot of other people too. I've told you about the pros and the charming, delightful, historic side of this old bridge here, but I'm afraid there's also another side to the story, guys. A darker,
side of the story. Now, me personally, I like to focus on the positive side of life and look at things in a positive way whenever I can. Try to be an optimist. I am naturally a bit of a cynic, a bit of a pessimist. I get angry and misanthropic at times, but I've noticed that on my quest for positivity, that the more positive I think, the more that I try to force myself to see the bright side of the situation, the more actually naturally happy and positive that I get. Although I'm not very naturally happy and positive right now, because that's a terrifying drop right there. Okay. Anyway, I normally wouldn't talk about a subject like this, but folks, I've got to bring it up. Children, leave the room and don't watch this part without your parents' permission. Like I told you, friends, this historic part of Route 66 is called the Colorado Street Bridge. But locally, it has another name. It's also known as the Suicide Bridge. And not just because the drop looks suicidally long. As far back as 1919, there have been incidences on this bridge. But the legend of the bridge really grew with the great stock market crash of 1929, the beginning of the Great Depression. Now, Pasadena is a ritzy, rich city, especially back in the 1920s. You had like the Procter & Gamble families and all these big, rich families with huge mansions living all over this town. And it's said that the stock market crash was so devastating that many of those rich men, those rich investors, leapt to their doom from this bridge. Now, whether that's entirely historically accurate or not, I really can't say. But ever since that legend began, and ever since that era, it's had the name Suicide Bridge. And rather unfortunately, that's put it in the minds of several people since those times to come up here and end their life. So there is a bit of a grim and macabre fascination with this bridge for some people. I'm a lot more interested in the Route 66 or roadside historical aspect of it. But a lot of movies and TV shows have also used the legend of the Suicide Bridge and used this as a bridge in movies and TV shows where people leap to their doom or are thinking about leaping to their doom. So I'm very interested in the Route 66 history, obviously, but there's a very tragic and sort of dark side to the bridge. Now, I bring this up for two reasons. Number one, it's part of the history of the bridge, and if I didn't say anything about it, you could Google it and in 2 seconds you would see 50 listings for Suicide Bridge, so you were gonna find out anyway. But number two is that while I understand some people will be like, hey, how come you're bringing that up? That's sort of dark, isn't it? I don't think that the subject of suicide should be as taboo as it is for this reason. Right now, at this very moment, there are people out there, maybe somebody close to you, maybe somebody you love very dearly and you have no idea, who's struggling with some really dark, unspeakable stuff. And because it's so unspeakable, they're really ashamed to talk about it, they're ashamed to put it out there, that sometimes they just don't have the will to carry on. And I just want to say that from my perspective, standing up here thinking about the men and maybe women who have jumped off of here, let's take the 1920s people as an example. Their story was over. You jump off a bridge, that's the end of the story. And of course, it seems like, well, that's the end of my pain and suffering. But that was the beginning of all kinds of other people's pain and suffering. If you go out like that, you're gonna hurt a lot of other people. Of course, people always bring that up. But not only that, you're never going to find out what would have happened. I've had some really dark moments in my life, man. Some really horrible stuff. Maybe not as tough as some people, but you know, all things being relative, some times where I just wanted to give up. But I hung in there, and inexplicably, miraculously sometimes, things had a way of changing. So what I'm trying to say is, never give up hope. Something like that ends all hope, finishes the story, no hope of hope. Life is tough, life is hard, a lot of bad, traumatic, horrible things happen. Sometimes it seems like there's really no way out, but I'm telling you, there's always, always, always hope. If I've learned one thing and one thing only, it's never, ever, 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 never give up. Well, we're done with the bridge. You can see here, it's happened enough times that there's actually a sign up here on this light pole. There is hope. Suicide is not the answer. And there you go, guys. There's the phone call hotline number right there. So, if you're struggling or having trouble, remember this. There is no shame in seeking some outside opinion, some outside help. If there's no one you can turn to in your life, you can't talk to a family member, you can't talk to a friend, there are hotlines and things like that. Don't just dismiss it without trying it. Give it a try. If you're really struggling, if you're really suffering, give them a call. Oh, look, squirrel, squirrel! Our first Route 66 squirrel. He's a little camera shy. You a little camera shy, buddy? Hey, buddy. Squirrel! All right, now I just need to find a restroom somewhere around here. Maybe someone in one of these mansions will let me use the facilities.
Nope.
no luck there.
The eccentric scientist who lives here didn't want to let me use the bathroom.
Kept going on and on about something called a flux capacitor.
Kinda weird, but at least he's gonna let me use the bathroom in the garage.
Look at this. Look at the toilet paper. Great Scott.
I've done my duty.
Okay, so Doc Brown's house from Back to the Future isn't exactly on Route 66.
But it is only a couple of blocks away.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that counts.
All right, time for us to turn onto the most seen stretch of Route 66 possibly in existence.
Colorado Boulevard through Pasadena.
Home of the world famous Tournament of Roses Parade.
Every New Year's, the Rose Parade, right here on Route 66.
You can see that museum there, the Norton Simon Art Museum. You can see that in the background in a lot of the shots on New Year's Day.
I keep having to remind myself I am supposed to be getting out of town.
I've got to come back this way, so we're gonna see a lot more of this type of stuff in California
when we're headed back west on Route 66.
For now, it's difficult to tear myself away, but we've really got to start cruising down this roadway through Pasadena and out towards some other cities.
It's a shame in some ways because Pasadena has so much 1920s, 1930s architecture, some even older, and even into the 40s and 50s a little bit, but generally speaking,
the farther you get from downtown LA in Southern California,
the more classic Route 66 things you're gonna start seeing.
like this, for example.
Would you look at the size of that windmill?
Now that right there is a great way to get people off the road.
Look at this place. I love like 800 things about this.
I love the windmill. I love the googie architecture. I love the history.
And I love like 797 other things about it, but look at this!
Right here on Huntington and Santa Anita Avenue, right here in Arcadia, exists the weirdest Dennys you've ever feasted your eyes or your stomach at. The reason it looks like this is because this didn't used to be a Dennys at all. This was the first windmill version and the last of the Van de Kamp's restaurants. Yes, the same Van de Kamp that you probably know frozen fish sticks from, or maybe some donuts. The bakery and frozen foods department sort of split up a long time ago. They also used to have a chain of restaurants. And unless I've got my story completely mixed up, this was the first one of them to have this crazy, googie 1950s space age mid-century modern design with a giant rotating mechanized windmill. Before this, I believe the Van de Kamp brothers had a chain of small bakery stores, Van de Kamp's Dutch Holland Bakery, something like that. And those also had little windmills on top, but they just looked like classic little windmills. They didn't combine the space age, crazy, modern looking 50s zigzaggy diner with the old school Dutch windmill. Now Van de Kamp goes deep because not only did the brothers build this crazy big bakery building in Los Angeles that still exists, they also, I think, opened some other restaurants like the Tam O'Shanter, had something to do with it. Then you've got the baked goods in the supermarkets and the frozen food and the restaurant chain, and right here along the side of Route 66, those guys with the weird last name intersected a lot of points of history. Well, Van de Kamp's is long since out of business, at least as a restaurant chain, but Dennys snatched up this prime corner real estate to establish one of its own restaurants right here on this corner. And I believe the original plan was to completely demolish the entire building, not just the windmill, but the whole shebang. But local residents were not huge fans of that plan, and thankfully they convinced Dennys to not only save this historic windmill, but even actually throw the money into restoring the windmill so that it still spins. I think it's pretty cool that Dennys did that. I mean, after all, what if Taco Bell went out of business? I doubt that you'd see McDonald's snatching up many Taco Bell buildings and preserving what they looked like. It's nice to see a little respect for a fallen competitor, huh? Oh, and look at this. This is truly unusual. Here's something I honestly didn't think existed anymore. Look at that. A California US 66 shield. Now, as you may or may not remember, Route 66 started way back in the 1920s and was finally killed off in the 1980s, 1984, I believe, which means that from that time, there no longer actually was a US Highway 66 going all the way from Chicago to LA. Didn't exist anymore. All the signs were pulled down. Now, since the 80s, many states have put up those signs, including California, those big brown signs that say historic Route 66. Some states even kept Route 66 as their state Highway 66, but I haven't seen a US
Highway 66 sign just chilling along a section of the old Mother Road before. It wasn't a replica. What is up with this? Had the highway continued past the 80s, no doubt this is exactly the type of signage you would see today. A modern Route 66 shield. That's so weird. It's no longer a valid US highway. But there is a valid US highway sign. Bizarre.
I feel like I seen a ghost.
Now this whole Arcadia area is super interesting, and of course they have the Santa Anita Raceway really close, which is a famous horse racing track. Look at this. We're actually on the Thoroughbred Racing Walk of Champions. But Route 66 actually forks here. You have this slightly more modern route through Arcadia, but then a much, much older section a little north in Monrovia. The older path actually even predates Route 66 by quite a bit, being part of the National Old Trails Highway. So I think that's the route that I'm gonna take. We're gonna be hearing that name, National Old Trails Highway, quite a bit, but I think we'll talk more about it in a day or two. For now, I'll just say that it was an older highway that was incorporated into the first version of Route 66. There's a lot of great stuff on this old part of Route 66. Some really old architecture and some historic homes, including this house right here, which was Jennifer's house from Back to the Future Part 2. Remember how earlier I made that joke? I don't remember bars being on these windows. That's the original spot right there where Michael J. Fox first said the line. And it's literally right off of Route 66. It's like we're in a time machine. Years ago, I had the very first Back to the Future filming locations website to publish the address of Jennifer's house there. I think it was the first anyway. And the deal I struck with the lady back then was to always tell everyone, please don't go up on her porch swing. But that is a great tip. The house is right back there, and Route 66 is literally just a few footsteps away. Apparently, they also have Pippi Longstocking's house here. Weird. Villa Villa Coola. Now the reason that I'm walking down to old Route 66 is I wanted to walk alongside of this building. Now Route 66 began in 1926. This building has been here since 1924, so it's obviously very historic. But it's not just a historic building, it's also a little unusual, and it's smack dab on old Route 66. Ladies and germs, I give you the Aztec Hotel. Would you look at this building? Look at that old neon sign up there. Now when you think of themed buildings, you usually think of the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. Maybe especially the 50s and 60s, you know, after the building of Disneyland. But look at this bad boy. This is a 1920s masterpiece. And let's not forget, this was the old original Route 66 right here along Foothill Boulevard, which means this was the main route in and out of Los Angeles, California, and of course, Hollywood. Every 1920s movie star, anybody who was anybody in fact, had to pass by the old Aztec Hotel on their way into town. This was a very ritzy, very swanky place for the rich, the famous, and everyone in between. It's been on the National Register of Historic Places since 1978, and they've been trying to restore this bad boy and get it open for business again. So far, no luck, but this impressive facade and this old school neon signage still remains along old Route 66, and of course, these businesses in the front of the building, you can still come patronize them and get a haircut right on the original Mother Road. Maybe even a shave and a haircut. I don't know if it's only 2 bits. Probably not. I really hope one day this hotel reopens and that this whole joint is swinging. This building has always fascinated me. In 2003, I recorded my old band's first album, I think just a block up from here. And every day we would drive by the old Aztec Hotel. I had no idea of its Route 66 connection, and I especially had no idea that you could come play Magic the Gathering in a coffee shop here. But something about that old building that really does look like some Aztec ruins. Look at the stairway up there. Awesome. I don't know. It just captivated me. Anyway, like I said, I think it's actually 2 streets this way. I recorded my first album in a garage that had been converted to a recording studio. So I just realized that my band, The Scarred, was really born right on Route 66. And of course the band is the reason that I have the nickname Justin Scarred, which means that I was born on Route 66. Kinda. Okay, fine. It's a pretty thin connection, but I'll take it. These windows all along here, these would be the windows to the actual hotel room units inside the Aztec Hotel, and I think that 1 or 2 of them are being lived in, probably by a caretaker, someone watching over the property. That has got to be a pretty cool job. Oh, by the way, this place is purportedly haunted. I don't know much about ghosts, but for what it's worth.
Haunted or no, I would love to spend the night in there.
Now, speaking of Monrovia and Route 66, I would be remiss if I didn't turn off a little bit of the oldest part of the highway and down to a newer stretch of Route 66, so that I can mention something that I think is a pretty interesting historical fact. Now, there's quite literally nothing left to see of it today, but right along this block on this side of the street at one time existed the Monrovia Airport, and it was at the Monrovia Airport, or at least over here next to the Monrovia Airport, that two brothers opened a weird 8-sided restaurant called the Airdrome. Now, those of you who have seen my other videos or maybe seen the movie The Founder will know that those two brothers were Dick and Mac McDonald, and their restaurant, the Airdrome, was eventually carted up and moved to San Bernardino down along Old Route 66. But the building that became the first McDonald's got its start right over here in Monrovia, also along Route 66. It's funny because no one can seem to agree on exactly where the Airdrome was, which means that Wiener Schnitzel back there could be on the site of the very first precursor to the very first McDonald's. Weird. All right. I'm gonna try to stop getting distracted here. I know that we can see some of this stuff when we're coming back to Southern California, so I've got to burn some rubber, baby. Get me through some of these cities on old Route 66. Oh yeah. Okay, we've motored our way through Duarte and Irwindale and Azusa, and now we're finally in Glendora, California, where, look at this, Route 66 is starting to be a big deal. Every 10 feet it seems like there's a sign with a 66 on it.
And those are just the modern businesses.
I'm also starting to see tons of history here.
Look at that old motel across the street, the 20th Century Motor Lodge.
That probably sounded very hip and modern when this place was built, but this is why I pulled over. Look at the street sign up there.
Not only is every third business in Glendora signed or named after Route 66, they've also named Foothill Boulevard after the historic highway.
Oh, Route 66 isn't a road anymore, huh? We'll show you. We'll name our city street Route 66.
Very, very sneaky, Glendora. I like it.
All right, traffic is seriously picking up now at this time of day. It's pretty much almost the beginning of rush hour in LA, which is really 3 or 4 hours of just solid red traffic, which means we better get going again.
Let's jiggle.
All right, we've come through San Dimas, we've come through Laverne and a little part of Pomona. And I promise you, I'm trying to hurry. I'm trying not to be distracted. But that's a very difficult proposition when you're driving 66 into Claremont and you see this.
Would you look at the size of that boat?
The sign is making me guess that this was once the original shrimp house, but at the moment it seems to have a different name. Nevertheless, that is one heck of a boat right there.
Imagine driving in on Route 66 from the desert and seeing this bad boy and knowing the ocean's not that far away now.
Dang, that is making me hungry.
Just listening to the radio today and they were talking about how there's all these great white sharks off of our beaches in Southern California.
Which made me think of Jaws, which made me think of we're gonna need a bigger boat, but look at this boat right here.
If they'd have had this boat, they would have been totally fine. Not only that, but they wouldn't have been hungry either.
Sushi boat. All right, guys. We just crossed the San Bernardino County line. We have finished LA and LA County's portion of Route 66. But this is just the beginning of our adventure. The road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. I'm gonna keep cruising down the old mother road, so hopefully you guys catch up and mustard with me tomorrow. Until then, check out the links below to see how you can support these videos. Maybe pick up one of these sweet hats or a t-shirt, and I will see you guys further on down the road.
Gotta be honest with you guys, I actually came all this way to see the old flame.
But the old flame's not here.
See, because at nighttime, they have a little flame that comes out of this sign here at the magic lamp. The old flame, it's the old, okay, never mind.
They all tried to warn me not to make that joke,
but I wouldn't listen.
I know what I need to do.
Nothing. Oh wait, maybe the sign, maybe the sign. I'm rubbing it. I'm rubbing it.
Darn it, these lamps aren't magic at all.
That's a real drag. I was gonna wish for better jokes.
Wah, 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 wah. And there you have it. I've done it again. Another bad, just another bad one.